Hello, my darling, dearest. I think the music may be a little too loud. Let's turn it down just a touch. Hello, my darling, dearest, undead, re-dead, and currently alive. Welcome. Welcome in, everyone. Today we are going to have a nice, quiet stream. And we're gonna, relax and enjoy our night together. We are in a little bit of a haunted house, aren't we? It's a little dark, isn't it? A little dark and spooky, but I think my vignette may have moved a bit, so I'm gonna fix that real quick. I don't know how my vignette moved, but I will go and fix that really quick. Hello, welcome in. This is why I don't usually create my own vignette. I usually use there we go. Just hold on, I have to move the ambience over. I have to move the ambience. Let me get rid of that. I think there might be a little touch of lag today. The atmosphere. How is everyone today? It is a brand new week. It is the 1st of October. The 1st of Spooky Month. Grimtober, if you will. For the 4th time, you joined us. The 4th time since I fixed that. For those of us who are on a different website joining us, hello. Spooky month. Welcome in, and I'm very happy to see you. I fucking love Spooky Month. Me too. I love me some Spooky Month. How's me compared to the music? Is that okay? Can you hear the dog crying in the background? I'm very concerned. I have also added another emote for biddies. I will be adding a couple more. I have to animate them. So that's going to be a very, alerts may be a little too loud. Oh, are you guys getting alerts? I can't hear them. I'm stupid. Here, I'll turn them down a little bit. Okay. Oh yeah, the check-in makes a noise. Oh, does it? I had no idea. I had no idea it made a noise. Why in the heck? I also have a date over my date. Hold on 1 second. Oh, yeah, I guess I do. Hold on. I gotta... Why is there a date over my date? Oh my goodness. Chaos. Okay. Well, now I know where it is, so I can just go in here and turn this off, and you would have known the wiser. I heard you like dates, so I put some dates in your date so you could date while you date. I hate that. That one was pretty bad. Either way, welcome in, and I'm very happy to see all of you. Undead, ghosts, or otherwise. Let me go ahead and minimize that while we just kind of chat with each other. Let me bring my vocal tone down, and yeah. Today is going to be very more sleep aid kind of focused. The decades plus me, let's go. Oh my goodness. Hopefully you guys are comfortable, maybe looking forward to a nice spooky tale or two. And don't worry, I will provide. But in the meantime, we're gonna do some ASMR because, you know, that's my thing, ASMR. First, I am going to open up my drink of the night. We are having some coconut juice, coconut water, if you will. I am a huge fan of coconut water. Don't know if you guys can hear that. Oh. Oh wow. Excuse me. Let me move this out of the way. Yes, it does. It actually has real pieces of coconut inside of it. It's probably some of my favorite coconut water to drink. It's so nice. And I really enjoy it. Let me go ahead and check and see what exactly is going on with my mic, because I see. Okay. What are you doing to my mic? Ah, this is the wrong mic. It's this mic that you want. Can you guys hear me a little better now? That should definitely help. And you guys can hear me tapping on the piano. With these nails. Alright. Let me keep shaking this can in front of your ear. Just imagine me pouring you something delicious, shall we? Alright, let's take it open. Sometimes the coconut pieces surprise you a little bit. Very nice and refreshing. Is there any particular ASMR we wanted to start with tonight before I start grabbing things? Uh-oh. I think what we shall do is I think we should do some, head pads. Of course. Oh, excuse me. So how was your day? It's the middle of the week. It's okay to be a little tired. It's a little hard nowadays. Everything seems a little difficult, doesn't it? But I think you should just try your best to relax for tonight. Don't worry about anything. Just focus on my voice. And I think you'll be okay. Tonight is the first night of October. Supposedly, certain elder gods like to stray a little closer to the veil. And as they get closer, they warp the perception of things around them, as elders do. So if you find yourself experiencing the unknown or the weird, consider that an elder god might be near you. I've even heard that if you go to certain places and say something, you'll find that the gods may give you a gift. As someone who also has been gifted by an elder one, I suggest you don't take their gift lightly. Or maybe you have a spirit, a little friend, wanting you to join them in the afterlife. Maybe it's a cat or a dog. You see their owner so very much, wishing that you would turn and play with them, not really understanding that you can't see them. Maybe it's a spurned lover from a past life. Or maybe it's just your shadow. Honestly, I prefer the spurned lover. Shadows are pretty. You know, there was a man once came into said to me, "Man, I've lost my shadow." I said, "Did you lose it here?" He says, "Yes." So we're going around looking for this man's shadow. And lo and behold, it was there where he left it. He was reading, because the shadow appeared to be a man standing in the lamp's light, reading a book. I turn to him and I say, "Which book were you reading, my friend?" He said, "I was reading this one," and he shows it to me. And I simply smile. And I said, "Of course. Your shadow knows better than you. You need to finish the book in order for your shadow to return to you." And he gives me this look. It's like horror personified. He said, "No, I can't. It's too much." I said, "In order for your shadow to be returned to you safely, you need to finish the book. You have to." He said, "The book says, if I keep reading, I will die." And so I said, "Surely you need risks, or perhaps you would like to not have a shadow anymore." The shadow's head turns, slowly, spotting its human flesh. It comes towards him, the book floating in its hands. It knows what it wants. It wants you to read. I back away slowly, letting nature take its course. The shadow forcefully whips his tendrils around the man, forcing him to open the pages. He goes to the spot where the shadow sat before and opens the book. So I thought, is there a way we can fix this problem? And so I look at him and I say, "Do you really not want to die? How much is it worth to you?" He says, "Anything. Anything." I said, "Would you be okay with losing your sight if you do not finish the book, if you cannot comprehend the words, if you cannot read? Then perhaps you do not need to finish the book." He says, "Will I get my sight back?" I shake my head. He says, "No. But at that point, I know that he's too far gone. He returns to the book, reading page by page, and as he turns, the fingers get more gnarled flesh begins to sag. He ages until it is just a skeleton and its shadow slumped over a closed book. I imagine that some of you come into our beautiful library oh, that was good. Oh, well, thank you. I'll consider it prior experience. Let me move a little bit closer to you. The library was has been a very busy place in the past. It still is. Libraries just aren't in vogue in this timeline, but in others, it's just as busy. Honestly, I prefer keeping it here. Here is so exciting. There's always something new happening here, so. Let me take a peek at YouTube chat. See how you guys are doing. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys are doing okay. Wonderful. Okay. Let me go back to what I was doing before. My dearest readers, I'd like to ask you, I have seen a lot of things in my life. A lot of scary little things. A lot of cold, dead things. But I ask you, have you ever seen how do I describe it? How do I describe it? It's like right, and it seems very it's how do I describe it without having to not destroy your ears? They don't really like this word, but a long time ago, when the library first opened, I was not the chairwoman yet. I was not anything. I wasn't even the library head. I was nothing. I wasn't even in this particular field of work, let's just say. But there's plenty of records, of course. It's a library. But the previous chairperson before me said, when the library was new, there was an infestation of sorts of little playful tricksters. They were no bigger than a thimble, and they would chatter about pulling books off the shelves and teasing humans non-cessantly. What ended up happening sometimes times when children were allowed in the library. Children are no longer allowed in the library, by the way. But when children were allowed in the library, also, we are not doing anything sexual today, I believe, so, feel free to remove the, I guess, sexual thing to this, because we don't need it. We're just going to be, whispering softly into the mic. There's no need for any of that today. Hopefully, you haven't fallen asleep. If not, I will go and take care of that right now. My keyboard is upside down. Yes, we do not need the 18 plus tag is fine. It's the Twitch tag, the other Twitch tag, the sexual content tag. We probably need to turn that off real quick. We don't have to turn off the... Yeah, done. Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay. I'm late, but I'm here. I'm making food to be back in a bit. Feel free to eat and, come back and eat. We are going to be here for a while, so take your time. As I was saying, these little miscreants would fly and they would move things around. Sometimes they would take the children and they would raise them up into the rafters and then drop them. Now, obviously, the fairies were not cruel. The fairies were not cruel creatures. They did not let the children fall to their deaths, of course. But they certainly had the most fun. The pool was regularly closed, of course. You know how those little ones can be. Very, very, don't ban us, Twitch. I promise we're good little crows. I promise. I am not a crow, but I am not going to finish that sentence. Oh boy, that was close. That was close. I'm a good tall vampire. Mm-hmm. Dinner and a movie. Anyway, so these little pests would go around, tormenting the adults and playing with little kids and being themselves. And so the current head of the library said that he devised a plan to get rid of them in a way, or maybe force them to all go home. So he kind of gathered them up, said there was a little bit of a ball. That type of creature cannot resist some type of engagement, some type of dance. That type of creature cannot resist that. So he gathered them up and he then trapped them in a net and essentially flung them into their dimension again. And sometimes the residual kind of network, the wards, I guess the gaps are so big. Sometimes one or two of them can, slip through. But don't worry. I'll give you some rules to live by when dealing with those little creatures. Are you ready? Number 1. Don't tell them your name. And I do mean any name, nickname, anything. If you tell them your name and you aren't a child, they will take you into servitude forever. Now, when it comes to little children are okay. Do you know why? Because when someone asks you your name as a child, you're going to tell them. So, the Fairy King basically said that all of his subjects should not be little children. So, he decreed that no fairy should not kidnap a child that has not been to the Fae first. So, instead of a fairy trying to get your name as a little one, instead what they would do is they would try to knock the child into a little knoll so they could be transported to the Fae realm for a couple of hours, as long as their little mind could stand, really. And then they would take them home, and the next time they got trapped there, they would stay forever. But there was one exception. The little prince. Now, this devious little man, he's, let's just say, interested in basically making a queen. He wanted a queen so bad. Now, for those of you who don't know how making a queen works, it's very disgusting, but I will try my best to tiptoe around the subject. So the fake queen is made with the skin. It's she becomes like this pustule mass, and she suffers for essentially 100 years in the Fae realm. It may be like 5 minutes here, but she blows up to an impressive size, gargantuan almost, and she gestates her own self. And usually, the fairy queen is human. At first, she has to be reborn as a fairy queen, if that makes sense. The fairy queen herself, because she is a giant mass, she needs to be fed. Giant masses need to be fed, right? Do you want to know what she eats? Well, come in. Do you want to know what she eats? I'm sure you do. I'm sure you already know, huh? Why it's such an issue that they remain in the library, So many humans go missing. So many humans continue to go missing. The bones are obviously discarded, but the part that they want the most is the gooey globules between them, your muscles. That is like, there's a word I'm looking for, ambrosia. There you go. Ambrosia is the word I'm looking for to them. So that is fed to the queen on a regular basis. She gorges herself on that ambrosia until she is reborn. And once the fairy queen is reborn, they host a celebration that lasts for 300 years, your time. Excuse me. I think it's rather nice. My word. Well, so my dears, my young ones, young girls, if you will, my young ones who should not be watching the stream, but I digress, you know. If a fairy prince asks you to be his wife, you need to say no. Do not agree. The pain and suffering in your heart will essentially make you a cold and terrible person, trust me. You may think, I'll be able to endure it. No, you won't. Your mind will break by the third day. It always does. And trust me, I was there. I saw it happen. She said, I'm going to marry the king of the fairies, and I will be... No means no, Mr. Fae. Exactly, no means no. Say no to the Fae, always. Just say no. I've been doing a lot of storytelling. You need to, let me cut your hair a little. Let's get some scissor sounds in here. I feel like, For all my lurkers, by the way, there's actually a lurk command that you can use that is randomized, I believe. At least I built it to be randomized. But, as I was saying, the researcher decided that she was going to be the king of the fairies. Head rubs. Alright. You got it. You want more head rubs? Alright. How can I refuse? I'm glad you are comfortable. Is that any mod you guys would want? Comfy emote, comfy crow emote. I'm thinking about making a set of animated emotes. We're missing a couple, so I'm trying to pull, see which ones you may want. I want some leaves as well. Comfy emotes are always fun. Well, this one would be animated, so. I digress. The researcher said that she was going to become the queen of fairies because, ironically, the prince had approached her one day when she was working on some sort of project. I don't remember from what organization she was from, but she decided that she was going to do it, despite, her superiors and everyone with a brain telling her to not do such a thing. But she did it. The first night was pretty normal, normal type of things that couples do. But then she started to notice that her body began to swell unnaturally. She started to gain skin in areas that shouldn't be there. Like her forehead, and her neck. Just skin, mind you. Nothing else. And then mass started to appear. Once that started to happen, the Fairy King essentially, let's just say, he made her go into the knoll and forced her into the Fey realm. Once in the Fey realm, she was, encouraged to devour fruits that were given to her by the elders. And she ate and ate and ate and ate until her lips were bruised and she could eat no more. And then she ate more and more and more and more and even more. She was so... I've never been full before. Like, full. You feel kind of sick almost to your stomach. She was more than that. It felt like anything that she did, anything that she would do, would make her topple over and pop like a balloon. It was like being bloated and nauseous and full all at the same time. But then she started to notice that she was strangely hungry. Like, very hungry. It was gnawing at the back of her brain. Her body would say, "I'm not hungry anymore. Please stop eating." But her mind would say to her, "You are hungry. You are hungry. You are hungry. You need to eat. Eat more. More. So she ate. Soon fruits were not enough. All of her favorite meals paled in comparison. That was the point that she was 10 meters tall. And the only thing that really remained of her human forms were the little stubby nubs of what one could be called hands, feet, and her head. Otherwise, she was this amorphic blob that just kind of sat in the center of the room, painfully swollen. And then she started to feel it. Movement. Strange. Huh? What is happening? Hello? What is happening? Oh dear. Okay, there we are. Sorry about that. So she started to feel movement in the belly. Movement. Just one wafer thin minute. She started to feel that movement. But it was different from what she experienced when she had her daughter. That's why she was so keen on giving it a try. She said nothing was worse than childbirth. So, this giant amorphous blob of a woman. Now, mind you, she was not curvy or fat. No, she was 12 meters tall and bulbous. And in the center, a bright pair of fairy wings illuminated her belly. It was like she was the center mass of herself. Excuse me. And every night, the king of fairies would go to her head, where it was, because she could no longer turn her neck, her human skeleton long, severed, but, held pleasantly together by goo, we'll just say. He would sing to her every night. Soft lullabies. The pain was unbearable. But she knew at this point that there was no going back. slowly but surely, the little life inside her belly grew and grew, till it was the same age as she was before she left. Then, metamorphosis. Let me ask you a question, right, my dearest readers? What happens to the you that dies in a previous dimension? So let's say that it's you in a mirror, and it's you on the other side of the mirror. Let's say you break the mirror. What happens to the one that's in the broken dimension? I wonder what you'd think would happen to them. Do you think they'd resent you? Do you think they would hate you? Do you think they would want revenge against you? I wondered all those things as the metamorphosis happened. The old body discarded. The old body split. The old body metamorphosized, and the new her fluttered out, a human-sized fairy, beautiful. My friend grabbed my hand and smiled. She said, "Miss Green, I'm reborn." And I said, "No, you are not reborn. You are something new entirely." The old her looked at her with such hateful eyes. Do you want to know what they do with the bodies of the humans? I don't think you want to know. So I won't tell you. It looks like an ad is getting ready to start. So I will cease my stories for now. Looks like we may have like about 4 minutes for them. After this little ad break, we'll go ahead and read our first tale of the night. Don't want to waste this beautiful atmosphere. That was a little strange, wasn't it? Let's do some crinkles. do you guys want to have another little contest? I know, your grim is very generous. But I figure it might be fun to do something for you guys for once. If you guys can guess what animal is in this little bag before next stream, so that's on Sunday, I will, whoever guesses it first, it's an animal, mind you, I will draw that particular person's idea for an emote. And my cute mod, if you could please write that down for me somewhere so I remember. Oh. I need a nice, don't need a pillow, I need like a back pillow. I need a better chair, honestly. I digress. The library provides. I would do this sound usually, but my windscreen is a little fragile. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Because I know this is someone's favorite sound. So I'm going to... sorry, guys. Okay. I should be touching directly in the ear right now. Oh. There's like a little bit of hair in there. But now, the danger's gone. Okay, I have to put that back. I have to put that back on. Life, you guys were not meant to hear the room that loud. So, give me just a second, okay? There we go. Very nice. Now your soft little head is back where it needs to be. I have a little story about a man who kept losing his head, but I'll tell it to you another day. Like the crows have given their all clear. Welcome back, my community. Let's go ahead and read that tale, shall we? It's a long one, so I hope you will consider listening well. Sometime during the night, August 16th, 1952, in the small town of Ashley, Kansas, the small town of Ashley, Kansas, ceased to exist. At 3:28 on August 17th, 1952, a magnitude 7.9 earthquake was measured by the United States Geological Survey. The earthquake itself was felt throughout the state and most of the Midwest. The epicenter was determined to be directly under Ashley, Kansas. When state law enforcement arrived on what should be the outskirts of the farming community, they found a smoldering, burning fissure in the earth, measuring 1,000 yards in length and approximately 500 yards in width. The depth of the fissure was never determined. After 12 days, the statewide and local search of the missing 679 residents of Ashley, Kansas was called off by the Kansas government at 9:15 on the night of August 29th, 1952. All 679 residents were assumed to be dead. At 2:27 a.m. on August 30th, 1952, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake was measured by the United States Geological Survey. The epicenter was situated on what used to be the location of Ashley, Kansas. When law enforcement investigated at 5:32 a.m., they reported that the fissure in the earth had closed. In the 8 days leading up to the disappearance of the town and its 679 residents, bizarre and unexplainable events were reported. To happen by dozens of residents in Ashley, Kansas, and law enforcement of the surrounding area. On the evening of August 8th, 1952, at 7:13 p.m., a resident by the name of Gabriel Jonathan reported a strange sight in the sky above Ashley. The town itself, having no official branch of law enforcement, called into the police station of the neighboring town of Hayes. Gabriel reported what appeared to be a small black opening in the sky. Within the next 15 minutes, the Hayes police station became overwhelmed with dozens of phone calls, all reporting the same phenomenon. The phenomenon was never reported by any neighboring communities. A decision was made to send off a trooper to Ashley to investigate the matter of the following morning. At August 7:54, on the morning of August 9th, Hayes police officer Alan Mace radioed the Hayes police station. He reported that, despite following the one-way road leading into Ashley, he had become lost. According to his report, the road continued along its normal path, but somehow ended back up in Hayes. The Officer Mace went on to add that the road never curved or bent in any direction. At 9:15, 7 of the town's police cars were sent to investigate the situation, and all members of the team came to the same conclusion. The only road leading into Ashley stopped leading into Ashley, but instead led back into Hayes. Phone calls continued to pour into the Hayes station, all reporting that black opening in the sky continued to grow in size. All callers were advised to remain inside and not travel unless absolutely necessary. At 8:17 p.m., Mrs. Eleanor Cantor reported that her neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Milton, and their 2 children, Jeffrey and Brooke, were missing. According to Miss Cantor's phone call, the Miltons attempted to leave town in their family car later in the evening. They never returned. The law enforcement officials from Hayes never reported the car or officials coming up from the one-way road. Excuse me, so I can at least see what you guys are saying. Okay, car. Jesus. On the morning at 7:38 on the morning of August 10th, phone calls from Ashley into the Hayes police station reported that the town was in total darkness. The sun had never risen. At 10:15 a.m., at the request of Hayes law enforcement, a helicopter from Topeka, Kansas, flew over the region in which Ashley, Kansas stood. The town was never observed from the air. At 12:43 p.m. on the afternoon of August 11th, Miss Phoebe Dulensky called into the Hayes police station. She reported that her daughter Erica had begun to have conversations with her father, who died 3 years prior in a drunk driving accident. To add to her concern, Miss Danielle Dulensky reported that Erica was attempting to go outside into the dark to join them. Over the course of the next 12 hours, a reported 329 attempts to go outside into the dark were placed into the Hayes police station, all describing similar phenomenon with children of the town. The following morning of August 12th, the situation became dire. In the middle of the night, all 217 children in the town of Ashley, Kansas, disappeared. A reported 421 calls were placed into the Hayes police station. Unable to be of any useful assistance, Hayes law enforcement instructed all callers to remain inside to avoid any and all attempts of finding their missing children. At 5:19 on the evening of August 13th, Ashley Elderman, Scott Luntz, reported a growing distant fire to the south. According to his description, the fire seemed to turn to the distant black into red and orange that seems to extend into the sky. Throughout the rest of the day, calls continued in, stating that the fire, in addition to moving north, now seemed to come out of the black sky. No fire was ever witnessed by any of the neighboring communities or law enforcement officials. The reports continued until 12 a.m. the morning of August 14th. The last phone call was placed by a Benjamin Edicott, reporting that the fire in the sky had grown so intense that it began to appear as daytime over the town. The phone call ended abruptly. One moment. This requires a little bit of... The car wanted to be a part of the story too. Yes, it did. Where is my phone? There we are. Duplicate that. Okay. Okay.
Just hold on. Wait. Yeah. I see something. It's to the south. It looks like...
End phone call. The next phone call wouldn't be placed until the following evening. The following is the entire transcript of the final phone call to be received by the Hayes Police Department out of the town of Ashley, Kansas. It was placed at 9:46 p.m. on the evening of August 15th, 1952. This recorded phone call, the officer on duty, is Officer Peter Welsh. The caller has been identified as Miss April Foster. Begin phone call.
Hayes Police Department. Hello? Hello? Yes, hello. Ma'am, who am I speaking with? My name is April Foster. My name is April. Please, sir, please help me. What is happening, ma'am? Last night they came back. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to. Last night they came back. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to calm down and speak clearly. What happened? Who came back? Everyone. Everyone? They all came in the fire. What do you mean? Everyone. My son. I saw my son last night. He was walking down the street. He was burned. Jesus Christ. He was burned. Ma'am, he died last year. I raised him since he was a baby. It was just me and him. I told him to watch for cars when he rode his bike, but he never wanted to listen. Ma'am, what you're saying does not make any sense. You said everyone came back? Are you fucking listening to me? Everyone came back. Everyone who died or went missing, they're back, and they're looking for us. He said, Mommy, I'm okay now. See, I can walk again. Where are you? I want to see you. Ma'am, where are you now? Where are you safe? I'm hiding, just like everyone else. We saw them coming from the fields, and some people opened their doors for them, and God, the screaming. I don't know what happened to them, but their houses caught on fire and they caved in. I have my curtains drawn. I'm hiding in the closet right now, and... Ma'am, is everything okay? Are you alright? Ma'am? Oh, God. Ma'am. Something just came in. Ma'am. Stay as quiet as you can. Don't make a sound. Mommy? Mommy? He came inside. Mommy, where are you hiding? Stay quiet. Ma'am. Ma'am!
End phone call. The following morning, at 6:55 a.m., the law enforcement officials of the Hayes Police Department arrived at the location of Ashley Candace. A smoldering, burning fissure in the earth was all that remained. The original author for this work was unknown, but it was uploaded on April 7th, 2012. That was The Disappearance of Ashley Kansas. Also, welcome in. Hi. I hope you will enjoy our little menagerie of stream. Spooky. Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it? I read a little bit of it earlier. Oh, let me make sure that's turned off. Okay, just to make sure that everything was working okay. Let me find us another story. The phone call was amazingly well done. Oh, shucks. I try, guys. I didn't want to do any of the screaming because I was too close to the mic. But I'm glad you enjoyed. Okay, I found our next story. So, before we get to that next story, let's go ahead and do some more ASMR. Do you all have a preference? Are you guys enjoying this new home? I wasn't sure how you felt about it. Maybe some bloops. You know what to do. You have all of the channel points. Do the thing. Do the thing. Redeem the thing. There we go. Hydrate, of course. Be sure to hydrate, everyone. Lubricate your organs, everybody. Speaking of lubrication, I read a book, and it was don't start. It was for those of us who were hey, yo. Now, I did not find it pleasing at all, but I could see how others could find it pleasing. There was a bit of impossible geometry going on, but I could genuinely, I could get it. I mean, you know, that particular part of the body is very flexible, I assume. Not from experience or anything, but not from experience. Bluebies. Also, did you clip that? No. I am tempted to take away those bluebies. All right. Flippy time. But as I was saying, do you enjoy this place? It is rather fortunate that you got it. For if I were not confined to the library for, well, in perpetuity, forever, well, I would have bought a place like this. It has a lot of character, lots of little things. Poltergeist. Did you find the ancient ritual site in the basement? Yeah. No, you did? Well, I did some research on it. It's a little... Are you kidding me? Really? It's 9. Anyway, I did some research on that site for us. It's a little difficult. For you see, the house was built before the site was covered. It seemed like it was built on top of the site, almost. The site was sunken into the ground, and the house built on top. The site is, well, the house's foundation. And such little rituals they began to have, you know, little blood sacrifice. A little hexing, you know, just little things. Harvests. Maybe a little murder. Surely. No one is above a little murder. But over time, as the years and
time progressed forward, people started to just a little murder as a treat. So, over time, people started to rebuke the old ways, but it was kind of not in their favor. There was an old one who was connected to this place once. I don't think it'd be right of me to say his name, so I won't. And besides, I think it may hurt your ears if I were to say it. But apparently there was one here, dancing along the edges of the veil. He told his greatest follower, the person who owned this manor, well, the great-great-grandfather who's owned this manor before you did, to build a house on top of it, to my honor. And so he did. Supposedly, if you're quiet enough, you could hear the spirits of the ritual sites laughing at night, just a little soft, in your ear as you sleep. I would be careful though. Supposedly, if you aren't from the family line, you could, go mad after a while. I've heard many people go mad here, but I think that's a regular occurrence in the library, honestly. Human finds a book they're not supposed to read, reads it anyway, despite the crows warning them. They know, you know. I also know what book you pick, every time. So if you read something you aren't supposed to, and you suffer the consequences, well, it's just another body I get to feed. Just because that crow could talk doesn't mean I'm gonna listen. Fair enough. I have seen a man. How else am I gonna find the entirety Encyclopedia Britannica in this day and age? Yeah, we do have that, actually. Yes, we do have that. I remember, I don't know if you all remember this, but do you remember when it was, okay, so there was a point where it was just the books, but as we got deeper into the computer age, there were CDs. Oh, and the CDs were my favorite. I used to sit there and just read all the time. Read the little, and I felt so smart, just kind of reading Encyclopedia not Dramatica. Encyclopedia Britannica, not Dramatica. Oh man, Encyclopedia Dramatica was a trip too. CD encyclopedias were such a specific time frame. Yes, it was. It was so weird. Don't you clip that. Stop that. Smoky, apathetic ramen PJ Sugar. Thank you for the clip. Why do they name their things like that? It's a little weird.
feel like every time you put it into your computer, you get a new virus. And each virus will be worse than the last. It's like a cursed amulet. Yeah. Oh. But yeah, CD encyclopedias were so interesting. Speaking of like PC games and stuff like that, did y'all play God, what is it called? God. It had the little blue guys and you could customize them, and it was basically math the entire time, but the game was fun to play actually. Yes. I think that's it. Zumbinis? Yeah, Zumbinis. I loved that game. That, the Codename Kids Next Door website, which was so fun. Okay, there was a game on Cartoon Network site that was so fun. It was like an RPG. I never got to finish it. I wonder if somebody has that. Maybe that's what we'll do on Sunday. We'll play that. Is this the one that had the 3 parts and a huge map? I think so. I'm not sure. Millennia Nostalgia Time. Yes. I think that's it. Yes. We had to find things to fix things to unlock new areas. Yes. I remember that. Yes. That's it. And the art was like strangely comforting, but it was so low res. Did you guys ever play the Garfield horror game? It genuinely scared my younger siblings, bless them. No, I tend to avoid it. I tend to avoid like Sonic X style, not Sonic X, but Sonic EX style games and stuff like that. I think they're rather silly. No, this was official. Are you kidding me? I've never played it then. It was a point and click haunted house. Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? If you could find it, I'll play it Sunday. I promise. Wait. I want to put a, hold on. I'm going to put a follower goal on it. If I reach 200 before Sunday, I will play it. I only need 2 more people, so that shouldn't be too hard, hopefully. This is my life mission now. I hope not. Oh, I have also been, I also frequent TikTok because I have to, because, short-term content, short-form content is very good for growth. I keep encountering these, terrible reels, real stories where like the girl is almost always unfortunate and she has to go through some suffering and hardship, and then she comes out on top. So let me tell you the story about one of these, right? Because for some reason, like, things are just glossed over so much. And usually, like, the torture is usually extreme. So, a young girl is born into a family. Rather, it is said that she is adopted into the family. The family is very well off, and supposedly their biological daughter returns home one day and says, "I am your biological daughter. Me and this other girl, the main character, were switched at birth, and you are my parents." She shows them the paperwork. The parents agreed, and now the main character lives with her sister, her brother, and their parents in their beautiful mansion. Things started to change around the house while the main character was used to, being an only, well, not an only child, but being the apple of her parents' eye. They started to treat her less than, as if she was adopted. Slowly but surely, they began to force her out. And even more so, the sister began to force her out. Started to treat her bad. Started to take things from her. And started to kind of put herself into situations where she was the victim. Over time, the girl became to be resented by her parents. The main character was sent away to reform school. But the parents didn't really, think anything of it. They said, "You are from a well-to-do family. No one will mistreat you." But they did not expect that their little loving daughter would essentially pay the people in the reform school to treat her terribly. Now, what you and I assume as terribly is, maybe they'll pick on her and maybe they'll, treat her badly or whatever. No. Do you know what they did to her? Do you want it? They ripped off her arm. I was shocked. I was like, so you what? Her what? They did what? With who? And where? So they would treat her so terribly that she would walk with a limp for essentially forever, and that what it feels to chew 5 gum, except you're getting your ass beat. Exactly. They really messed her up. And she basically is there for 2 years. So for 2 years, she's like enduring all this suffering and whatnot. And then her brother comes to pick her up, and she's just like, "You guys aren't my family anymore. You left me essentially here in purgatory." And like, it just gets crazier and crazier from there. I love watching those really crappy reels. They're so fun to just sit down and watch with like a little bit of popcorn and, some brain rotty task that you need to do. Well, I have your ear. let's go ahead and start the next story. Are you guys prepared? Are you comfortable? Get comfortable. Oh, that's right. I guess I can kind of pronounce this slow, soft pronounce this and say that my debut is coming. That's right. I'm not just going to be a talktuber for the next year. I'm actually going to debut. I have a couple of friends of mine that are wanting to collab with me, and they're like, please debut already. Please, I'm begging you. Please. They're shaking down my door. Debut right now. I'm so mad at you. Debut. So your Grim is going to work extra hard on this model of hers, and so you'll kind of see changes quickly over the next couple of weeks, as my debut is in November. As we get closer and closer to the month of, you will see more things of me. Perhaps more VTuber adjacent things. Like more VTuber adjacent content. So I'm sorry in advance. I'm sorry, I may have to do the VTuber whatchamacallit, canonical VTuber song thing where I have to introduce myself, which will be horrifying. I never want to do it, but I feel like it's canonical and we all have to kind of do it at least once. Also, hopefully, I get the video done in time, because that's gonna be fun. Regardless of such. Let's get it. A flame burst from the darkness. It was hesitant for a moment, but it flashed for an instant, showing the faint glimpses of a lone figure. A second flame was made, but it sizzled low before fading away. The third, like the first, was shy for a moment. However, it became full of thorns and nipped at the fingers of its master, but it was held in its place. It would not go its own way. No. It must be sealed in a cage of iron and glass. Lenny raised the lantern to her face and gazed at the flames for a moment, hypnotized. The fire blazed in the reflection of her eyes, illuminating her face with a dim orange hue. The face belonged to a teenage girl about 13, with a face gaunt, pale, and filthy. Her hair drooped down in dirty brown, bed-raggled locks, and streaks of orange now faded. She finally blinked a few times, her eyes dry and itchy, and she turned to the dim room behind her. It was an oppressive black cinder-block chamber, covered in black scars from an ancient fire from exactly 40 years prior. It made Lenny think of the inside of an oven. The walls were crawling with rusted metal pipes that snaked all the ways to the boilers in the rightmost side of the room. Opposite was a makeshift bed of rags and cloth. It wasn't particularly comfortable, but it was arguably better than sleeping on the cold concrete. She cleaned them to the best of her ability, but it was still disgusting. She'd grown used to the stench. Next to it, against the back wall opposite the red iron doors in front of which Lenny stood, was a creaky old wooden chair. Next to the chair was another table, longer than the first, filed with old books and relics she'd managed to scrounge up. To the right of the table were some rusty pipes that ran along the wall, which were 3 sets of handcuffs. Beneath those were rags she'd been using to tend a nasty infection she developed on her leg. She'd acquired it a week or so ago from a snake bite, a black squirming thing, and it oozed and throbbed incessantly. But she was still alive. On top of one of the book piles was a jar of fireflies. At first, Lenny had trapped 10 bugs in it. Now only 2 remained. They were her only friends, now trapped in that jar, like she was trapped in that accursed Wisconsin town of Carthage. She turned to the right side of the room where the boilers were, and picked up a dirty green backpack from the floor. Next to it was a black shovel, small enough to strap to the side of the bag with a bit of rope. Before putting it on, she set the bag by the red doors and grabbed the topmost book from her bedside table. It was a fuzzy gray tome. She flipped to a page with a strange symbol on it. She pulled a worn chisel from her pocket and bent over meticulously to carve it into the cement floor. The circular pattern shone light gray against the black stains. There was a familiar, though not identical, pattern on the floor from the handcuffs, though it was heavily faded. She thought of the day she discovered it, just 4 years prior to the summer of '02. Lenny was 9 at the time, a couple of months shy from 10. Her parents perished in a house fire before she was even a year old, and she was sent to live with her grandmother. Her grandmother was the only family she had ever known. She had never gotten to meet her grandfather or any other relatives. They had a cat for the first several years, but it had died a few weeks prior to the incident that brought her here to this accursed place. She had 2 siblings prior to her parents' death. The first had perished shortly after his birth. The second never made it past the 3rd trimester. Lenny never knew their names. It was around the age of 5 that her grandmother began to grow negligent of her supervision of Lenny. As long as she was home before dark and didn't get on her grandmother's nerves, she had free rein to go wherever she pleased. And without any friends of her own, not even her cat, this often meant simply ambling about in the surrounding courtside. However, she had become drawn to the abandoned school a couple miles up the road, which bore the letters Black Road Middle School. The building was burnt and overgrown, and in the large swath of woods amongst the spiraling wheat fields, Lenny found herself drawn to it, like a gnat to a flame. The other children at her school always spoke of it with fear in their voices as they spoke of ghosts and zombies creeping through the blackened hallways. Like the others, this appealed to her imagination, but in a much different way. She wanted to see this place firsthand, to turn over the ancient rubble and to see the ghosts herself. After a few cursory visits, she began to feel at home in the school. To her, the burnt, peeling walls and the broken windows felt more like a comforting sanctuary than anything else, and she found herself spending more and more time in the walls. The feeling of being watched never bothered her, and of course, her grandmother forbade the place to Lenny. To help dissuade her granddaughter, she herself fed her the ghost stories in the hopes of keeping her away. But this only encouraged Lenny even more, even though she was careful to keep her excursions secret. That is, save for one night in particular, where Lenny let herself slip. She had been particularly adventurous that day, and decided to go crawling into the basement level of the school. The air was warm down there, the shadows blacker than the walls. Eventually, she made her way down further into the boiler room, which apparently appeared to be the source of the fire. It was there that she found the particular etching in the floor. Intrigued, she drew it on the sketchbook she carried with her. She wanted to design her own patterns like this. She had been jolted suddenly and harshly awake that night. Her grandmother's callous hands clapped painfully around her wrist, the skin burning as she was dragged downstairs into the kitchen. Her grandmother didn't say a word until she shoved Lenny into a chair at the table. When she pointed at the notebook lying open on the table, her face held more rage than words could explain. Explain. Lenny was too startled to speak. The book was open to her drawing of the symbol that she found in the basement. Lenny Bootman, I said, explain. I... What? Cat got your tongue? Forgot how to speak? No, ma'am. Lenny mumbled. I know you went back to that school. Haven't you ever listened to me about that place? That place isn't safe. You could get hurt. Speak, God damn it. I'm sorry. No, you're not. This was true, but Lenny couldn't bring herself to refute it. Instead, she turned her eyes to the cactus in the kitchen window that her grandmother tended to. The moonlight danced upon it. Look at me when I'm talking to you, her grandmother snarled. Her eyes dragged against their lids as she obeyed. She locked eyes, and a shiver trickled down the back of her spine. Her grandmother had a bony figure with tan skin and freckled features. Her hair was dull and gray and mousy in texture. Place no good for young girls. Ghosts live in there. I don't believe in ghosts, she lied. The words scurried out of her mouth before she could rein them in. Excuse me? She could feel her heart beat. Oh, where are we? She could feel her heart beat, thump, thump, thumping away in her throat. She wasn't sure if that was the tingling in her feet was from fear or from anger. Either way, she wanted nothing more than to bolt out the back door and splint to the school, her dark sanctuary. Looks like the ads are getting ready to start. So we'll go ahead and take a brief break. Actually, no. We have 5 minutes. We're good. 5 minutes. It's just, you keep telling me there's ghosts in there, and I keep telling the other kids talk about them, but I've never seen one before. And I've been there before. It doesn't seem dangerous to me. That's so? You ever see the shadows flicker? The feeling of eyes upon your skull. Yeah? Yes, ma'am. Her grandmother corrected. I mean, yes, ma'am. Don't roll your eyes at me, and look at me when I'm talking to you. Lenny obeyed, and they glared at each other for a long moment. Eventually, her grandmother sighed and sat down. She scowled and lit a cigarette. Happened back in the 60s when I was young. Was still living here with my mother. Learning. Learning about what? Her grandmother gave her one of those rare smiles. A leathery line cut across her wrinkled face. I'll teach you when you're ready. But back to the point.
That place is full of bad things you want no part in. Like I told you before, it caught fire from bad wiring, and the whole place blew up faster than you could imagine. Luckily, the teacher got most of us out, but there were some of us ain't so lucky. 2 of my best friends included. Lenny found it hard to believe that anyone was friends with her. The whole place was ruined. No student ever set foot in there again, lest not under any supervision. Curiosity would bring some of the dumber kids back every now and then, myself included, you being the dumbest. And you know what they say, curiosity killed the cat. And satisfaction brought it back, Lenny thought. But instead she asked, "Did you ever see anything?" "Yep. I was there by my lonesome. But I tell you, I went deep into that school, and it was close to sunset. But I wasn't the only one there. I never got a good look. But then I started hearing noises coming from all directions. Sound like footsteps and shuffling. But I got down there to the boiler room, and I tell you what I saw. The shadow of a child down there, and started running towards me." A shiver ran down Lenny's spine. Of course, I never went back, and neither should you. I ain't the only ones who's seen stuff out of place there. You've heard the stories. Disembodied voices, hands grabbing at you, faces in the doorway. Does that sound like the kind of place you want to be crawling around? Immediately, Lenny was itching to go see. She was spooked, yes, but something inside of her was drawn even more than ever. She wanted to see a ghost, but she shook her head instead. There are worse things in that school than ghosts too, Lenny. And I hope you never have the misfortune of seeing what they are, secret things. After this, she felt like there was something more, something vital. But everything vital had been stripped from her rigid guardian. Lenny knew from experience that if her grandmother didn't want to tell you something, then you'd have better luck pulling a sword from a stone. You came damn near close to one of those things today by pulling this little stunt. Her breath stunk hot of sherry. I told you not to go in there. I told you. I don't understand what's so bad about a doodle, Lenny muttered. She accidentally let her resentment creep into her tone. Oi, Lene. Her grandmother spat, enraged by Lenny's contempt. What does ole ne froggy thing? Lenny found herself thrust onto the grimy tile floor as she tenderly touched where her grandmother's hand struck his cheek. Don't you ever mock his name again. Who are you talking about? Her grandmother, who now towered over her, raised her arm to strike again, but this time she held it. Her face, which had been twisted into a bestial snarl, slackened, and soon her arm did as well. I forget. You don't know the old sayings yet, the old names, the old faces. She trailed off. Lenny dragged herself back up onto the chair. Her grandmother sat down across from her and pulled out a cigarette and brought the ashtray nearer. She struggled. To light it for a second. Her hands almost shook violently. Her grandmother's tone had changed after that skull-splitting smack across the face. That was the night that Lenny began to learn the truth, or at least some of it, amidst a nest of lies. Her grandmother stayed up that late that night and told Lenny that there were many outlandish things that she said that had been passed down for generations. Lenny wasn't sure if she was ready to believe such things, but as time wore on, she became just as convinced as her grandmother was. Her grandmother had taken out a peach-colored leather book that night, with a strange symbol on the front, and told Lenny of beings called the Divines, which were god-like beings that existed in dimensions beyond human understanding. There were so many of them, some beautiful and some terrible. The one she spoke of was the being named and more commonly referred to as the Warmth by its followers. It was a harmonic divine of the flame, her grandmother said, and it was a dragon made of fire that lived in the sun, where it held his twin, the chaotic divine, or Ashen. The Warmth was among the divines which helped create life on Earth, while its brother, out of spite, sought to burn anything and everything it could touch out of spite. The two clashed eternally. Lenny turned back to the present and finished carving the pattern into the floor. She slid the chisel back into her pocket. The carving wasn't unnecessary for the moment, but it would be essential come nightfall. She placed the gray book onto the table, slung her bag over her shoulders, and grabbed a lantern, and shuffled her way through the red iron doors. The shadows danced in the basement, and she could feel the invisible eyes upon her. The sensation was her only friend now. She had become one of the ghosts. She limped her way through the ashen school, the pain in her leg now familiar. Before opening the front doors, Lenny raised the old lantern and opened the grimy glass door, blew out the flame, and set the lantern down. There was an instant of pure blackness before she pressed against the cold metal door handle and burst out into the blinding August heat. The parking lot stretched out before her, the concrete crumbling in sprouts and bushes through the pavement. Black road ran along the far side, and beyond that was an expansive wheat field, the grass waving in the slight breeze like hay, like hair. The light was strong, and she had to squint. There, to the left of the door, was her bike, resting upon the old rusty bike rack. She kicked the stand out with her dirty black tennis shoe and hopped onto the skeletal machine, which was a couple years too small now. The sun beat down upon her face. She had to tie her sweatshirt around her waist, and she was already beginning to sweat. Cautiously, she eased her way down the road, wary of any traffic she might see on the dirty Phantom on the side of the road. Sweat trickled down her back as she pushed her hair out of her face before setting off. The breeze felt soothing and exhilarating as she pedaled away from the brush into the open countryside, but her legs screamed in agony. Fields outstretched for miles, dotted with clusters of foliage, abandoned shacks and overgrown farmsteads whizzed by. The buildings grew thicker and most derelict. She'd wondered for many years why it seemed that half of the tiny town of Carthage seemed to be ashes and bony black timbers. Her grandmother always avoided the question, only giving her the story of the electric fire at Black Road Middle, though the story always changed slightly. You do not need to hold this one back. Please let it go through. I will just stop reading there for the time being. Her destination was about an hour and a half away. It was an old house, even for Carthage. It was a dark gray house with wooden panels that were half rotten, that hadn't been painted in decades. Fortunately, the old, dirty black truck that usually sat in the back of the driveway was gone, as she expected. She watched this house regularly, since taking up residence in the school, learning its ways and regularities. The trees were thick here, and grew even thicker to its side and back. Lenny's eyes were glued to the dark windows, anticipating the ghostly glare of Arnold Knight, even though she knew he wasn't home. It was a scowl she had seen many times in the window when she still went to public school, before her grandmother pulled her to be homeschooled. She had been forbidden from riding the bus due to the number of times she got into the fights with the other kids. So she had to ride her bike to school every day. Past Black Mill Riddle and past the Knight's house. She always tried to hurry past the Knight's house, for whenever she did, the air would explode with barking of his Rottweiler. She would see his pale, corpse-like face pressed up against the window, his eyes locked on hers like a wolf. If she were unfortunate to catch him outside, he would spit in her direction and give her a nasty, "Go on, get." She'd usually flip him the bird and cackle as the frail skeleton of a man howled at her, sometime launching a rock that always missed. On a few occasions, he let his dog sprint after her, howling and growling, just barely slower than she could pedal. She hated that man for as long as she could remember, and he hated her for even longer. Her grandmother always told her never to speak to that man, and to give him a wide berth. Fortunately, besides her daily passing, she managed to keep a good distance. It looks like the ads are getting ready to start. Once again, you can always dodge the ad check by, becoming a ghoul. I feed you a little bit of blood, you give Twitch a little bit of your coin, and you get to enjoy the story. You get to enjoy these little bits of millennial throwbacks. Well, while we just kind of sit here, are you guys doing okay? Do you need anything? Have you been, looks like we have 27 seconds, but are you guys doing well? Do you need anything? Are you hydrated? Make sure that you keep yourself hydrated. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and hydrate too. Doing a-okay. That is delicious. Looks like the crows have given the all clear, the merchants have moved on, and we can continue our business. It wasn't long after she had gone to Black Mill Riddle and discovered Back Road Middle and discovered that strange symbol on the floor. Her grandma had ceased to give her much, if any at all, supervision, as long as Lenny stayed out of her hair, and as long as she was back home before daylight. She won a few dollars at school by winning a bet with another student who could withstand Indian sunburns the longest. On her way home, she decided she wanted to use her money to get a snack at the gas station across the street. She frequented it often. The clerk knew Lenny and her grandmother on a first-name basis. Lenny had the unpleasant surprise of bumping into Arnold's leg after turning into the candy aisle. The old man, who towered over her like an immense skeletal vulture, whipped his gnarled head around and kicked her away sharply. "Get off of me, you runt," he snarled. His teeth were brown, and their crookedness reminded her of sea crags. His breath was horrid, and dribble flew onto her arm. Not one to take insults lightly, she kicked the old man in the shin with all the strength she could muster, but she immediately regretted it. "What the hell is wrong with you, you little brat?" he screamed. He scraggled her ear between his pincer-like fingers, and she screamed in volatile anger. "Didn't that old hag you live with teach you some damn manners?" Don't talk about her that way. What did she ever do to you?" He put his face mere inches from hers, his eyes white and wild, jowls trembling like a dog. What did she ever do to me? What did she ever do to me? That bitch took away my daughter. She deserves to hang for that. And she does. And you can tell her I said so. Lenny spat in his eye. He roared in rage and dragged her to the front counter, where he demanded that the clerk call the police and take her home. When the clerk refused to call the police on a 9-year-old, Arnold screamed and cussed and stormed before storming out of the store. When Lenny asked about what he had said to her, she became furious at the man and said that he was a dirty liar that couldn't be trusted. Lenny believed her. Just a second. Lenny turned from the memory as she arrived at his house and hid her bike in a bush by the road. Careful to make it invisible from any prying eyes, she worked her way into the bushes and crept towards the small trail that was behind his house. It was faint. It almost looked like a mere deer trail. She had already scouted once ahead before. The woods thickened as she went. But a few moments later, she reached an old ancient iron gate with sharp spearheads atop. Inside were several overgrown gravestones. The gate was padlocked, but she didn't feel like breaking it, so she tossed her bag over the fence, the shovel landing with a loud clank. There was a sturdy-looking tree a few feet away, and she hopped up and wrapped her hands around the lowest branches and heaved herself up with a groan. The bark gnashed at her palms, and her infected legs screamed in agony, but she ignored it and hobbled over to another branch that hung over the iron fence and dropped down, the soft, slightly overgrown grass cushioning her fall. It took a moment to wipe her hands on her soiled jeans and peered through the sun through the canopy above. She didn't have long before sundown. The light had already gotten to that golden quality that came in the later hours of the daylight. She pulled out a water bottle from her backpack and chugged the whole thing in almost one go. The ride had been miserably hot, and she was thankful for the coolness that the shade provided. Her clothes were drenched in sweat. Her face was dripping. She crushed the bottle in her hands and put it back into her bag, and pulled out a little spade and working gloves. Still panting, she scoured the headstones until she found the one with the newest looking. she found the newest looking one, a little black slab of marble with the words Catherine Knight, June 6th, 1953, September 29th, 1966, chiseled gracefully into it. The same year Black Road Middle burned down. Though it had been dirtied up by now, it still shone glossy underneath. Lenny picked up a bunch of dead flowers and tossed them unceremoniously aside. She put on her work gloves and untied the shovel from her bag. Then she began to dig. It was almost crippling. But finally, almost 2 hours later, her shovel hit something solid. She was only 4 feet deep and thought it must be a rock, but she was jubilated when she found it to be the top of a grave liner. With her spade, she cleared away the rest of the dirt on it and hopped back out of the hole, newly energized by the breakthrough. Fortunately, there were metal hooks on the surface of the lid, which she threaded through the rope and used to heave upwards from the surface. What the She wasn't used to so much physical exertion, and she thought her leg might snap. But finally, she got it to rest against the side of the hole, and there it was, what she had been waiting for, the casket lid. It was a small casket fit for a child. The dark oak was disgusting and musty. Earthworms and centipedes wriggled atop of it, which she stomped out with her shoes, savoring the explosion of guts beneath her. Lenny found a little latch which kept the lid closed and began to heave upwards. The lid was heavier than she expected and dropped it by accident. Her arms being already sore, she got out of the hole and laid down on the clear side of the grave. The sun was setting, but then there was some light to see with. She guessed she probably had fully settled in another 15 minutes before nightfall. Why did it have to be so hot today? It felt great the day before. After taking another water break, she finally got back down into the grave, newly refreshed. She grabbed the handle of the rotten lid and heaved backwards as hard as she could, ignoring her leg. She was immediately knocked back by the stench. It came up in an explosion of reek and seared the inside of her nostrils and panting mouth. She turned around and gagged, leaning against the rim of the hole with a foot at the grade. She tried to hold it in, but she couldn't. Vomit came rupturing out of her onto the grass, exploding out of her nose too. It burned. She cried for a little bit, gasping for breath. She hastily snatched her water, but the taste of it was completely ruined by the taste of stomach acid. She wiped her mouth and the hem of her shirt and pulled it over her nose before attempting to look inside. The skeleton had little in the way of flesh left, except for some black tight sinew that stubbornly stuck onto the bones. The girl's dress was soured by rot, and the skull was covered in dirt. Gnarled hair clung to the top of it, held in place by a headband with a bow. The stench was still overpowering. She felt as she might vomit again at any point, but Lenny powered through it and hammered away onto the girl's spine with her spade until the bones finally cracked. She wrenched the head loose and yanked the hair and headband. She was glad to climb back out of the hole. It was getting dim in the shadows of the trees. Reaching into her bag, she grabbed the cloth and carefully wrapped the skull before gingerly placing it inside her backpack, along with the spade and the rope. She considered closing the casket and putting the dirt back in place, but decided it was just unnecessary work. It's not like it would matter after tonight if Arnold discovered the missing grave. And what were the chances he would visit anyway? The sun was already dying. She reattached the shovel to her bag and tried to jump onto the branch from which she had dropped, but alas, she could only graze it with her fingertips. She faced the fence with apprehension and stuck her foot out in the crevice between the bars and grabbed the top spears. She didn't want to toss her bag over this time, but it wasn't as heavy as she anticipated anyway. As she was crossing over to the other side, the spears scraped her leg, and she fell, tearing a hole in her pants on her right calf. She gasped in pain, for it had scraped the infection. She lay there a moment longer, nursing her fresh wound. At last she felt ready to continue. She finally burst forth from the bushes. She looked to the left of her house to see that the truck was back in its usual place. She had taken too long. Realizing she might make too much noise, she detached the shovel and tossed it back into the trees. Almost as soon as she stepped out of the bushes, though, a bright LED exploded over the backyard, triggered by her movement. She held up her hand to shield her eyes and retreated back into the forest. But not before she heard the baying of the dog and the clatter of the screen door. "Who's there?" she heard Arnold call from the porch. "Show yourself or I'll shoot!" She ran deeper and saw him hobble down the steps with a shotgun in hand, following the sound of her footsteps. A gunshot exploded into the night. Lenny heard the splintering of the wood behind her. "Sick 'em, boy!" Lenny screamed as she heard the dog howling behind her. Her legs screamed, and she could hear the thunderous paws gaining on her. "Is that you, Lenny? Get over here, you little..." Another missed gunshot. She didn't dare look back. Her eyes were fixated upon the bike. The dog gained, but she finally reached her destination and wasted no time in mounting the bike and speeding away. Her leg wanted her to stop, but she used the pain as fuel. Another gunshot. Once she was on the road, the baying of the dog finally began to fade. The air had begun to cool, though it was still hot enough to make her sweat. Her eyes were quick to adjust, and she had to pull over a few times to avoid passing headlights. She couldn't help but compare them to searchlights. In her mind, the last thing she needed was some noisy cop finding a missing child with the skull of another in her backpack. At long last, she found herself riding up to the abandoned parking lot that sat as a barrier between her newfound home and the outside world. She paused to look up at the sky for a moment, and was impressed, as she always was, with the incomprehensible number of stars above. She heard that light pollution in school. She heard of light pollution in school, and was glad that Carthage wasn't large enough for it to be an issue. Lenny walked her bike up to the school. Inside was pitch black, and she had to light a match so that she could see. Dim as they were, matches were all she needed. From the corner of her eye, she thought she saw a face leering from one of the classrooms. A shiver went down her spine, but she ignored it. Adrenaline pumped as she limped through the peeling halls and shimmered past rubble where roofs and walls had caved in. She was so close, so close. Arnold would get what was coming for him. He would pay for what he did to her. Her thoughts returned to that evening recently, as they often did. Her grandmother had grown severely ill in the next few weeks, before she had taken refuge in the boiler room. Lenny begged her to see a doctor, but she was stubborn. She wanted to stick to her own remedies from her rights, but they were of little use. Lenny watched in horror and anger as she slowly withered away in that musty bedroom of hers. She began to get tired of the constant demands to fetch her soup and blankets, to change her bedpan and to bring more blankets. It seemed nonstop for Lenny. Why wouldn't she go to a damn hospital? However, after one night while her grandmother was asleep, she came across a book. Welcome in. She came across a book, unlike the peach one of warmth. However, this one was gray and had the appearance of charred wood. It had an unfamiliar symbol on it, but when she opened it to the first page, the word caught her attention. What was her grandmother doing with such a relic? She had always told Lenny that only the most deranged of scholars dabbled in the ways of the ashen, yet here was an entire grimoire for it. She also found an old paper. The pages were yellowed and detailed in how the fire burned down Black Road Middle. 3 children had been found handcuffed in the school's basement, one of which was Catherine Knight. She let the paper, but took the book into her room and began to read it. She felt a knot of excitement at this discovery. She knew her grandmother would be furious if she knew that Lenny had found this, but that very thought fueled her to keep reading, to defy everything that she had been taught. The book's contents were damnably horrible, and at certain points difficult to read with the level of their atrociousness. But the more she read, the more tempted she was to participate in them. But despite her resentment, she couldn't bring herself to actually consider using the book. "Aw, thank you." She couldn't do that to her grandmother. Not until she made a discovery. She thought back to the night her grandmother struck her onto the floor. She now understood why her grandmother became so irate, and why she was determined to keep Lenny away from the school. She knew what she meant when she told Lenny there were worse things than ghosts in Blackbrook Middle. For deep in its contents there was the same symbol she had discovered on the boiler room floor. But what was her grandmother doing with such a book? Or, a better question, what had she done? She was going to confront her grandmother, but decided against it. Instead, she decided to hell with her grandmother, to hell with the warmth and all that nonsense. She knew how to commit the ultimate act of rebellion. It began with small rites, ones that didn't actually cause any damage. She started with small animals, setting them ablaze and drinking their blood to gain psychoactive trances. But the feeling she got was in the most wonderful feeling in the world to her. It wasn't of power, nor happiness, nor rage. It was a feeling she had never experienced before. But it was a powerful one. And to satisfy her growing desire, Lenny needed more blood. The townsfolk were terrified by the new wave of pyromania, but this time it was worse than before in the 60s. Lenny would laugh as she watched entire buildings full of screaming innocents burn, wither to dust. She fed off their fear, and in turn began to find herself hating them. She had never hated so much before, and it fueled her fire. Human life meant nothing to Lenny. Of course, not everyone was so oblivious. Lenny found herself being interrogated frequently by night whenever she would pass his house. At first, it was enough to simply deny any knowledge, but she soon found herself having to run away from him entirely. Police questioned her at school, but Lenny knew how to play the victim well. She was just as terrified as anyone else. She knew Arnold, being the retired fire investigator, must have tipped them off. Eventually, Lenny pretended to catch her grandmother's illness as an excuse to stay away from the interrogations. She remained oblivious to the recent events, and Lenny simply passed the days ruminating in the abandoned school. Lenny was ecstatic. She reveled in her wrath, fire burning away at her soul. It was a short-lived happiness, though. One night, while Lenny was preparing dinner for her grandmother, she saw a familiar face peering through the window. They locked eyes for several moments before Lenny turned to go upstairs. Grandmother! Grandmother, she hissed. Lenny grabbed her shoulders and shook her awake. What is it? What is it? I'm trying to sleep. I don't feel good, she grumbled. I saw him in the window. Who? Arnold. Her grandmother's eyes shot open and she jerked upwards. When? Just now, through the kitchen window. Should we call the police? Her grandmother was silent for a moment, her teeth grinding furiously. No, I know what to do. I'll have him taken care of soon enough, don't worry. Just don't come in here. Lenny nodded and left the room. She wondered why she was barred from the room. But then something had occurred to her. Grandmother, just really quick, I left my textbook in there, she cried, before there would have been time for her grandmother to do anything. She let her in, and fortunately her grandmother took this chance to use the bathroom. Quickly. Lenny placed the gray book where she had stolen it back where she found it. Some time passed and Lenny fell asleep in her room, eyeing the second-story window to see if she see any silhouettes in the yard. Lenny woke furiously to the screaming smoke alarm and the downpour of the sprinklers. Smoke already filled the bedroom, and it burned her eyes and mouth. She instinctively gasped for air. She rolled over onto the floor and tried to open her eyes. The smoke was so thick that she thought she was blind for a moment and saw the glowing flames in the hallway. She heard a shriek from her grandmother's room, surrounded by a surrounding crash. Grandmother! Grandmother! There was no response, though she could hear violent coughing. Acting quickly, she crawled towards her bedroom door, the smoke making her dizzy. The stairs were completely impassable, though she surely thought the heat would melt her skin. She pounded on her grandmother's door, but it was locked. There was no response. With no other choice, she stood up and smashed herself against the door, hoping that through some miracle she would cause enough force to break it open. She realized she wasn't hitting it hard enough and began to kick it repeatedly, holding her breath for as long as she could. Finally, she fell forward through the doorframe as it came crashing down. The smoke was a little less in here, though it was filling up fast. The flames were approaching down the hall. She knew Arnold had been the cause of this. He probably waited until they fell asleep. She finally found her grandmother laying on the floor next to her bed, with blood trickling down her head. There had been more blood on the nightstand. Lenny realized what had happened. He tried shaking her, slapping her, but nothing roused her. Finally, she brought herself to check for her pulse. There was none. Knowing she had moments, only minutes to act, she opened the bedroom door and punched out the screen. She tried to pick up her grandmother's body, but it was too much for her. She saw the 2 grimoires on the dresser, grabbed them, went out the window, and climbed down the overhang below. Initially, she considered fleeing to a neighbor's house, and was about to, when she realized she had nowhere to go now, no other family to go to. She would be forced into foster care. Instead, she fled to the one place she knew nobody would find her. Lenny turned back to the present moment. At long last, Lenny had made it into the boiler room. She quickly lit the lamp and set her things down. Let me actually hydrate a little bit more. Excuse me. Oh! Are you guys enjoying this story as I take this brief break? It's been a long one today, hasn't it? She quickly lit the lamps and set her things down. She was glad she had already taken the time to carve the symbol into the floor. There was too much excitement to take the time now. Lenny unzipped the bag and withdrew the skull, still wrapped in soiled cloth. The smell of death still clung to it and stained the inside of her bag, but it was not so overpowering. She gingerly placed it down onto the table next to her chair, crossed the room, grabbed an old pill bottle she found, along with a pocket knife and a bag of an angel trumpet flower inside. She placed it on the table next to the skull and ripped out a page from a notebook. She placed this underneath the skull and, pulling out her chisel, carefully whittled at the jawline as so to make dust from the bone that fell onto the paper. Referring to the gray grimoire, she made a copious amount and used the paper to funnel it into the pill bottle. She pulled the delicate white flower out of her bag and used the butt of the chisel to grind it into a pulp, only a portion of which went into the bottle. She clasped the knife in her hand and stared at her arm. She would need to get enough blood to mix the ingredients and drink, but she hadn't thought of how much blood that really was. She placed the blade against her wrist, the metal cool on her skin. She closed her eyes and winced, and jerked her arm forcefully across her skin. She grunted in pain, but held the bottle underneath her wrist firmly. She quickly realized she had not cut nearly deep enough, and that the wound stung terribly. Lenny was scared of how deep the incision clearly needed to be. But then she thought of the look that would be on Arnold's face when he saw what she had done. Of course, she really didn't need to do this ritual. She could easily do this without any rituals. In fact, but she didn't just want to kill him. She wanted to offer his soul to eternal damnation. Another incision was made, making sure enough to go deeper like she really wanted to. It stung like hell, but it was enough to fill the pill bottle with. Quickly, she wrapped her wrist in gauze, the cloth immediately turning red. She then dipped the chisel in the blood and traced it along the pattern she had carved before, carefully whispering the incantations from the grimoire. She then grabbed a can of lighter fluid and carefully outlined the pattern with it, struck a match, and tossed it down. The pattern immediately burst into a mahogany smokeless flame. It was hot, but not unbearably so. Just for a moment she was mesmerized by it, how it seemed to dance unlike any fire she had ever seen. She could almost see a terrible face in it if she stared at it hard enough. She grabbed the paper she had used for the dust and sprinkled the rest of it onto the fire as evenly as she could manage. Then, with a little apprehension, she took the gauze off her hand and stuck it into the flames. It was very warm, but it did not burn. She let the blood flow freely onto the symbol. She wasn't one to be dismayed by the sight of blood, but taking so much of her own would worry her. After she felt it pour long enough, she went back across the room and sat into the chair. She picked up the skull and smeared more of her blood into the eye sockets until the bone was no longer visible. It felt disgusting to the touch. The hair was greasy and hung over her fingertips. When she stood, she felt lightheaded and had to sit back down so she didn't pass out. Surely she hadn't lost that much blood, had she? She put more gauze on, just to be safe. Being almost done, she placed the skull in the designated place on the circle. She could feel the fire getting hotter. She noticed that the flames were larger now, too. For the final step, she downed the mixture in the pill bottle like a shot of sherry. The taste was overpoweringly metallic, the texture grainy. It sent a shudder down her spine, but she persisted, murmuring more incantation. She got on all fours and crawled into the flames. As she spoke, she could feel the fire creeping into her head, slowly obscuring her thoughts until her mind was obliterated into a red haze. She slowly opened her eyes and everything felt different. Her mind felt fuzzy. She wasn't quite sure where she was or what she was doing. She felt like she was supposed to be doing something, though. She tried to blink her eyes and find that she couldn't. Her body felt dry and flaky. Memories, seemingly from 2 different lives. Was her name Lena or Kathleen? Memories from Kathleen seemed old and ancient, like relics unearthed from the soil. She must be Lenny. She looked down at her hands and saw they were bony, almost skeleton, but made of glowing embers. Oddly, this did not frighten her. She tried to trust her face, but found that she had no muscles. She had no lips. She felt her face with her fingers, the movement blurry, as though she were in a very vivid dream. Her face was hard and lacked flesh. She poked her eyes, or lack thereof, only empty sockets. Lenny turned around and was startled by what she saw. Herself. Her body was hunched, all fours in a red blaze. Her eyes were drawn back into her skull, and she frothed at the mouth. She was convulsing violently, but she never broke position. The air was silent. There was only the sound of the crackling flame and the soft whimper of her disconnected body. She remembered now. She remembered that this is what she was trying to accomplish all along, and that she had important business to do. Her emotions felt off, inhuman. There was a face in the flames, one she would normally find horrifying beyond belief, but it filled her with a strange feeling of brethren. It resembled a dragon, and it leered at her menacingly before dissolving back into the flames. The memory of Arnold began to fill her again. There were ones from long ago where he had been her father, but that identity was old and frail. Lenny devoured it hungrily, the fire inside beginning to grow. She felt it too confined in this tiny boiler room. She needed oxygen. The way out felt hazy and surreal. The fire in her head seemed to be pulsing in and out. One moment she would feel more alive and real than she had ever had in her flesh. The next she felt almost non-existent. The world turned into like a dream-like haze, and nothing but a memory of consciousness. Once outside, she felt immense, stronger, more. A fire had begun to spread outside from herself, and she was feeling that old hatred and resentment, that need for revenge, that need to kill. As she moved through the countryside, the flames around her slowly began to spread. At first it was merely a trail behind her. Now it was almost a circle of flames. And as the flames grew, she became more angry, more determined to devour. The land seemed to sweep away underneath her, almost like she wasn't really moving. Instead, the world was moving around her. It felt like almost an eternity, and in an instant, between her leaving and arriving outside of Arnold's house, she could feel that ash that made her bones becoming thicker, taking the shape of her most ancient forms. She opened the door to find that the house was dark. There he was, just upstairs, sleeping like an infant. She crept to his side, and his eyes opened. He screamed and shuffled out of the sheets, which caught on fire. He trampled down the hall, his screams of terror fueling her, making her need to burn more. The house was in flames now, but she kept him safe, for now. "You're not my daughter. Not my daughter," he kept gasping to himself. She chased him out of the house and forced him down the trail to the cemetery. He saw the open grave and screamed a cry of a father who had lost everything all over again. She approached him and grabbed his face. His fingers were searing the flesh they touched, and she held his face to hers. He clenched at his chest, and she grabbed at his neck. She squeezed and squeezed the air right out of him as he burned and screamed. He had seen the other face, too, she was sure, and her flame would damn him to be consumed by the ashen, a fate much, much worse than death. His flesh had fed her frenzy, and she needed more. Her work was done, yet she felt though she had only begun. Then she looked at the forest around her, and in a fit of rage unlike any she'd ever felt, she devoured it, her reach farther than ever now, and the more she fed, the more she craved. There were other houses nearby. In a fiery haze, she obliterated several more farmsteads and gnawed on the flesh of dozens more. She was beginning to lose her identity, the fire taking over her mind, trapped in a state of delirious hunger and rage, her mind turning to nothing. She became a being of unadulterated wrath. She looked down and she noticed that she no longer had a form. She instead was seemingly made of the fire itself, shifting and twisting, expanding outward further than she could see. The screams of Carthage were music to her ears. The fire and flesh fuel for her fire. She wouldn't stop until absolutely was nothing left. The sun would rise soon. She grew wary. The town of Carthage was no more. All of it burnt to a crisp, devoured by the ashen, whose belly would soon burn those souls for all eternity. She looked toward the sun and saw her reflection. It was terrible beyond words, and it reached out, obscured by her vision, and consumed her in her great jaws. Lenny jerked awake, body still seething, mouth still full of froth. The fire had went out. There was only the lamplight now. Her ears rang, and her vision pulsed. All she could see in her mind was the face of... She tried to think, but there was no room for it. Her eyes rolled back again, and she felt the semblance of movement, and awoke again outside the parking lot, face sideways on the ground. It was fire everywhere. Black smoke blotted out the stars. In her delirium, she saw bliss in the sight, and only wished for more. She saw the face of the ashen in the smoke, and was paralyzed. Her muscles tightened, and she found it more and more difficult to breathe. Thunder rolled in the distance as the first droplets fell. The last thing Lenny Pullman will ever see was the dragon's maw. Written by Dangan Billups, September 11th, 2025. That was August in Carthage. Did you all enjoy that story? Wasn't that fun? Don't tell me you all fell asleep. I mean, that would definitely be the that would definitely be the point, honestly. I am very happy to say that this stream was a little bit longer than expected. But I'm happy that you were here with me for most of it. So, as a little treat, let's do one last set of ASMR. Maybe I can give you guys some head pats as a good night treat. Sound good? Also, thank you to my mod here for sticking it out with me. I know it's really late, so. I'll do you one better. Ara ara. Ara ara. There you go. Thank you for letting me read today to you. I am often really grateful to my great employer for allowing, such a thing to happen. If you would like to see me more often than not, I often post on the Clock app and YouTube, where, if I remember, but I have a terrible memory, to put up the cut-up versions of the stories that I read to you all. Didn't really have much editing to them, so it's just kind of the story itself. Maybe a little bit of the fluff edited out, if I can catch it. I hope you sleep well tonight. The night is dark and full of terrors. But I don't think you should go through those. I think that you should get to dream sweetly, as you were all so sweet to me today. Thank you. Look up your little face. One day, I'd like to be able to have these streams for an insanely long time. Like maybe to one. But now is not that day. I have to get back in the live 2D mines. The models gotta get finished. There's still a lot of little things that I want to fix up before it's time for the big reveal. But you guys were here from the beginning. So, yay you. I wish you good sleep. Let's see what we can do about perhaps raiding into someone else. Or maybe it's a little too late for that. I don't know. Let's see. see what exactly we're doing here. Let's go ahead and send you over to this melty girlfriend person. Okay? Now I hope you all will be on your best behavior. Okay? And let's start our sleepy little raid. Good night, everyone.